Hi, guys.
Hi.
How
Hello.
you doing?
God, that's really loud.
If anybody wants water, we've got a bottle opener here on the table. Right. Thank you very much for coming today. So we've got three guys here who have a few things in common. They're all founders, European founders.
Handsome.
They're all extremely tall. And they've all got European startups. But that's where all of the similarities end. Very different people with very different companies. So one of the divisions is you two over at Huddle and Zendesk have moved over rather quickly to the US. Klarna has stayed in Europe. So I'd like to maybe first explore that, which is probably an interesting question for Europeans. What's the promise? What is the impetus that drives you into the US market from Europe?
Sunshine. Sunshine and blue skies.
Yeah, because it's a beautiful day today in Berlin, isn't it?
I think it rained non-stop in London from October till May last year.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, and whereas in San Francisco, it's kind of nice almost the entire time.
And that's
Weather.
still better than Sweden, right?
Yeah.
So it's to avoid SADs. Why don't you tell us about what the European promise is?
Zendesk, my company is out of Copenhagen, Denmark. I'm Danish. And we bootstrapped it for a couple of years in Copenhagen before we moved the company to San Francisco. And I think that was very much driven by, we had most of our businesses in the US, but that was not because we targeted the US market. That was because you have the early adopters, you have you have a lot of the the technology savvy, the technology hungry companies in the US. So it's by definition just a much bigger market for a tech startup. But we didn't really need to be in the US to serve the US market. But we had this, the TechCrunch bug. We were reading TechCrunch, and we were hearing about all the action taking place in San Francisco, and about the big rounds, and all of
the free T-shirts.
The free T-shirts, all of that stuff. So I think we had this American dream, and we wanted to be part of the action and where the action took place, and that's definitely where the action takes place.
You agree with that, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, for us it was slightly different. We actually, we started the company in London, and we'd probably been going for a couple of years when we took our B round of funding from Matrix Partners, a US West Coast VC, and they said they wanted at least one, and ideally both of the founders on the ground in California. Alistair, my co-founder, was kind of knee-deep in running the operations of the company, so I put my hand up and I said, I will move to California. I'm going to fall on that wonderful sword.
You are a super, super altruistic guy.
I live to give.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, it was a great thing to do. A, because for an enterprise software business, that's where the money is. You think about the later rounds of funding, CD to IPO. That's where the big VCs with the deep pockets are. You think about.
Do you think that's more for enterprise than it is for consumer?
No. Well, what I always say is, depending on the type of business you run, not every business needs to be in Silicon Valley. I think looking around, if you're working in fashion. I mean, I can see lists just over there. That's a business that doesn't need to be in Silicon Valley. There's absolutely no reason for that. But if you're building broad consumer or broad enterprise, it's the best place in the world to be. It's where the funders are. It's where the press are. And frankly, if you're going to get acquired along the way, it's where the guys that are going to buy you are as well.
Yep. We'll come back to that in a minute. So, two things from there. What you're telling me, basically, is that Europe is technologically backwards?
No. No.
Behind the times?
No.
Just kidding.
No, but
I'm putting words in your mouth.
But California, it is the birthplace. It is the big.
Yeah, I'm kidding. But to shift over to Nicholas here, you guys have taken a very, very different route. You started in Sweden, and you have grown. You've taken a huge amount of money from the US, but you've chosen to stay here. So why don't you tell us why? Why have you decided not to go to the US?
Yeah, I guess we had no clue about the free T-shirts, right? But now we know.
If they knew about the free T-shirts, it's because you have H&M. You don't need free T-shirts.
Right,
Yeah,
right, still cheap.
Yeah.
No, I guess, I mean, we are in the payment space, and we totally believe in that payments need to be local.
Yeah.
And putting that requirements on us with all the things around it, with the regulatory requirements and so on, I think that makes it much more difficult for us to expand to other markets. So we're in 7 markets now. It's still Europe. Almost all of them are within the EU, which makes it much, much easier. So for us to move to outside European Union is quite tricky. I think it will happen, but it takes a longer time.
When?
I don't know. As soon as possible, I hope.
How soon is soon?
I think we're trying to take on 1 to 2 markets every year, additional.
Are you
so
going to pretty
quite
much,
soon.
do you want to do the rest of Europe before you leave Europe, or is that not necessarily the...
I think we're mostly looking into what the merchants, the e-commerce companies, what they want. And if you look to how the e-commerce companies in Europe work, most of them are selling to other European countries.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that we want to target. And hence it makes more sense to cover the most larger European economies first, and then maybe look at outside Europe.
Now, how much...
I think that when you look at the model for most European companies, what we're talking about there actually holds true, which is European companies that I see tend to keep their bases in Europe. They will keep engineering and product management, and they'll move to the US and kind of have an outward-facing business center there, sales, support, business development. But that way they can take advantage of all the great skills and talent and the low-cost base of staying in Europe, but have access to the market and the money on the West Coast as well.
That's what you guys have done a lot of.
Yeah, which is what we've done.
Yeah.
The bastard model.
The bastard model, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think is that like a challenge, an opportunity? Like, you know, splitting it up like that, is that okay? Because do you remember when Facebook was reportedly looking at ways? I mean, this was a big issue for them. They really just wanted to move everyone to Menlo Park, to their headquarters in California. They didn't want to go. They wanted to stay in Israel, those R&D people. And that's what they've done. Selling to Google. Google's keeping them there. I mean, but that poses its own challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are challenges in both models. The challenge of having everybody in one place is that it then becomes very hard to internationalize afterwards, and you kind of go through those growing pains at some point. Having a split site means you can take advantage of the talent in the local economies. You can take advantage of low cost. However, you have to deal with that, you know, if you're in the UK, 8-hour time difference between London and San Francisco, which, you know, I'm not a morning person, right? I hate getting up early, but, you know, 7 a.m. meetings are the norm, which means that, you know, going out late basically is off the menu.
Exactly. So, but for you guys, Nicholas, when you go, I just want to go back one more time to the US question for you guys. Do you think that when you do go, first of all, you've got a lot of money in the bank because not only are you profitable, but not too long ago, you guys raised 150 million round from US investors. So are we going to see you guys enter new markets organically or inorganically? And by that, I mean, are you looking to buy anybody?
I think we're more looking into organically. That's how we've done it the previous...
Organic.
Yeah. That's how we've done it the last 7 years since we started. So we don't really have that DNA of buying other companies, but we might look into that as well.
It's such a big one in e-commerce, though. I mean, it was like just last week, Wonga came into the German market through an acquisition, you know. So there's that, and obviously PayPal has done that. The Samwer brothers with Rocket Internet have, you know, played on that very hard with some very interesting exits to the ambitious US players in e-commerce. So do you feel that that's the route you will have to go to really, when you decide to put the pedal to the metal and go for really high growth?
I'm not sure. I mean, looking back, I mean, we have been able to triple or double the company since start, basically.
Yeah.
And that's, for us, is a growth that is hard enough to cope with.
Right.
And if we're able to keep up that same growth, I think we're fine doing it organically.
Okay.
But of course, I mean, it's harder to grow from a larger base, so we might end up there as well.
Okay. I'm going to shift back to what's going on with European companies in the US. What would you say are the big challenges when you're going from Europe to the US to set up business there? I mean, obviously you had some major support by way of investment, and that probably gave you guys some interesting networks to deal with. And plus, when you have offices next door, you know, obviously, you know, Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, so this is amazing kind of network effect.
You have the whole funny accent thing to deal with.
But that's a blessing or a curse?
It depends. I mean, I can't count the number of times I've had to spell my name, the name of my company,
Yeah.
and even actually put on an American accent in order to make people understand. Andy from Huddle.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, Huddle, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but like when you move, you know, across the world to set up shop, like you're extremely depending on the network that your investors and so on can help you with and set up for you. But I think that's what they have in San Francisco. That's what they have in Silicon Valley. They have an extremely well-functioning ecosystem that is great at growing companies. And you don't find that anywhere else in the world. So yes, it is hard, like starting from scratch, basically. You have to start all over with network and everything. But it's an ecosystem that is just created to help you with all of that.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, I talked about moving to San Francisco in 2010, kind of like when we started Huddle in 2007.
That's interesting.
Some people inside the ecosystem might know you. You know, the analysts and journalists might know you, but if you spoke to the man on the street, they had no idea at all. And I think Mikkel's also right that, you know, San Francisco itself is kind of like an accelerator. I was talking to John Bradford from Techstars London last night, and he was saying one of the reasons that Techstars don't have a San Francisco outlet is because the city itself is an accelerator, and therefore a lot of what they bring in terms of community is kind of redundant.
Their whole ethos is to try to basically recreate that elsewhere in the world because it's so hard to do that. So yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, do you feel like you guys are missing a bit of that action by not being there?
I think we get some of that
I
action.
love Europe, by the way. I sound like I'm anti-Europe.
No, I think we do get some of that action since we have American investors. I mean, we're backed by...
Do they give you pressure? Like when you guys coming out to join the big party?
Not really. I think
No?
I mean, they're quite happy about the development of the company and so on. And just to answer your first question, that by having American investors, we are plugged in to their network and so on. And that helps a lot, of course. And also helps setting global ambition for the company as well.
Yeah. Okay, so staying on the finance side and investors and everything, I know that you guys have all raised very respectable amounts of money already. The kind that, you know, several series that may be leading you guys to your next steps. Now, I know that, so let's go to Huddle first. Now, you guys have hired a CFO recently, in the US specifically, with the implication being, presumably, that you're going to go to IPO?
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, I think for every entrepreneur, you're kind of aiming for that moonshot. You know, you want to take the business all the way to public launch. And that's what we're aiming for. I think that it would be infantile to expect that something may not happen along the way. I mean, you know, we will continue to, you know, we'll raise another round that will hopefully be the last one to take us to IPO. But, you know, if someone comes along and offers you several hundreds of millions of dollars, it's going to be hard to say no. However, you know, that's not our aim. We're not building this business to be sold. We're building it to go the entire way.
Nobody does that. That's a very bad move.
Oh, I don't know. I think there are actually lots of businesses on the West Coast who build to be acquired.
Yeah.
Businesses, you know, who, you know, their entire aim is to, you know, to sell for $30 or $40 million, and that's absolutely fine. But, you know, that's not why we're here.
So has somebody approached Huddle with several hundreds of $million and an offer that you possibly may not be able to refuse?
It wasn't several hundreds of millions of dollars enough.
I see. So you have been approached to be bought for, let's say, $200 million.
I'm not going to talk about that. But the fact is,
was it 300 million?
the fact is, you know,
Was it 400 million?
It wasn't enough to it wasn't enough to be interesting to us. So
It wasn't
you know,
enough.
we continue on our journey, which is hopefully going to take us the entire way.
What's your valuation now?
Well, I mean, the last valuation we did was based on a funding round of about 18 months ago. So, you know, that's so completely out of date to be totally immaterial.
Because it's much higher now?
Hopefully so, yeah.
Can you give me an idea of what it is?
Several hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
I would hope. But the thing is, you know, until somebody's prepared to pay this,
Yeah.
it's just something written on a piece of paper. You know,
Okay.
it's an expectation that you hold. I mean, you know, that's the thing about technology valuations. Until someone's actually coming to you with a suitcase of money, it's just bullshit. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So, Mikkel,
Yep.
I know you guys have been approached for acquisition as well. You want to stay independent, from what I understand. You're sort of pretty, like, hardcore on this idea. So how much are they going to have to offer you to get you to change your mind?
I think so. I don't think this is about money.
Salesforce, presumably, right?
I don't think
No?
this is about money at all. I think that
Okay.
if
It's not about money.
no, I think like if you really feel confident in what you're building, if you're passionate about it, and if you have as much wind in the back that we have, like you want to go all the way and you want to see what kind of impact can you actually do, and can you change the industry you're in, and can you change how customers and businesses are working together, then you want to do it. And we cannot talk about valuations or anything, or revenues or any of that stuff, but I'm looking forward to the day when we can be a public company and can share all of this information and can tell the world what a great company we are.
When do you think that might happen for you guys?
It's sometime in the future.
Like in the next year?
It's in the future, and you know that.
Next 2 years.
We cannot talk about these things.
Next
you know
3.
That. Yeah,
But it's a really good
No.
point, though, that, you know, the money is only kind of one part of the equation around, you know, why you might sell. You know, when you've spent 5, 6, 7 years building a business like Huddle or Zendesk or Klarna, the idea of some faceless corporate coming and gobbling you up and your brand just disappearing into the ether isn't particularly attractive. You know, we spent such a long time building a great brand with a great team. To think about what, you know, how that could just disappear into nothing,
I know.
you know, that makes me kind of a little bit sad on the inside.
I know. There's the Yammer Skype route. I mean, okay, yeah, let's all wince at Microsoft for a second. No, but they very much have, you know, decided they wanted to stay sort of self-contained. Obviously, they're integrating them into their businesses. This is actually something I wanted to bring up because, I mean, it's an interesting idea. With enterprise, I feel almost much more than consumer. It's about ecosystems. You know, the way that enterprises buy things, the way that they do everything is they like. The ideal is for less friction and for everything to work together seamlessly in the back office. This is the promise of the cloud, isn't it? That you don't have these silos of things going on.
Yeah.
That, for companies like yours, is, to me, implies that there's going to be ultimately a push for integration there. And obviously you can integrate while staying independent, but there's always going to be that drive of, is it better to just be under one roof? You know, do we go the Salesforce/Microsoft route, or the Oracle route, or do we, you know, try to be the next Salesforce or Oracle or Microsoft a la Dropbox, you know?
Well, I think there's a whole new paradigm today that we can all use the internet and the open protocols out there, and we can all a new generation of enterprise software companies can be good citizens of that ecosystem. When companies today have a one vendor strategy, it's not very much about integrations, because a lot of these products, look at the product Oracle, the Oracle product stack, for example. These products are not very well integrated.
No, they're not at all. You're right.
But they
It's a big
have
deal.
one vendor strategy because they have the sales relationship. And that's what matters for them, that they sit down with somebody who promised them, we can figure out making these things work together. I think the internet is delivering that today. We can, like Huddle and Zendesk can work very seamlessly together because of the internet, because of the open protocols and the open APIs. And I think that's going to change the enterprise software landscape dramatically over the next couple of years. Well, it'll be a lot easier for a new generation of companies to disrupt these large, like, forced ecosystems and replace them with, like, new open ecosystems.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's the way things are moving, but it's quite interesting because, you know, when I speak to Aaron Levy, for example, at Box, they're you know, he's not just a cloud-based company, but he's like a cheerleader for cloud. You know, he's like comes up and short of having pom-poms in his hands, he's like you know what I mean?
Oh, completely, yeah.
Aaron Levy, yeah. But it's really interesting because even when you talk to him and you kind of really push the point, he admits they're working with a lot of companies that still have a huge amount of what they're doing is still on their own equipment, in their own customer premises, or, you know, it may be in a data center, but it's their own stuff. It's definitely not what you would think of as cloud. These are still very large hurdles. So, I mean, and that affects actually all three of you guys. I mean, do you see that as well, you know, the way he describes it, or are you...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
gradually is the needle moving?
This kind of whole private cloud on-prem thing is a huge opportunity for businesses like us because, you know, it's very cost ineffective, it's very inflexible, and so when you take it, you know, for us it's kind of looking at how they might deploy something like Microsoft SharePoint and say, well, okay, you can continue to use that for your compliance and regulatory stuff, but you think about all the times you need to work with people outside your business. Your team need to work when they're on the move via the mobile devices. And all of a sudden, the people say, well, actually, fine, we actually don't need to keep 80% of this stuff on-prem. We can shift it into the cloud. And as long as you can work with and integrate with our on-prem systems, there's no reason why we wouldn't do that. You know, and that's kind of just one tiny section of the enterprise stack. You think about how Zendesk can integrate with a bunch of their other systems, or Box can integrate, or Yammer can integrate. You know, that's why the cloud is you know, such an exciting proposition for an entrepreneur, because there's just such a huge nascent market that's being really, really poorly served by the traditional vendors right now.
Yeah. Okay, so we have just a few minutes left. I would like to use this time to just ask a quick question about where you guys see Europe startups today. What's the big opportunity for enterprise in Europe right now? Let's start with Nicholas. You've been a bit quiet for the last few minutes. What's the opportunity?
The big opportunity for enterprise.
In Europe, yeah.
I think this is very undeveloped still, I think it's opportunities all over in this space. I mean, it's so easy to just go into finding consumer products really sexy and everyone want to jump on it. That's what you see every day and so on. So I think it's all over.
So you think there's more opportunity in enterprise than in consumer? What do you guys see? What is the hot area?
I think that the cloud adoption is, of course, accelerating all over the world. And I think US is probably the market where you have the deepest and the fastest cloud adoption. We see some markets in Europe that are definitely slower. I think that Germany still have a lot of on-premise that you talk about. This is very much SAP country.
I was just about to say that.
And
they've been sapified.
Microsoft is also very, very strong, both in the Nordics and here in Germany. But still, we definitely see Germany is our fastest growing market in Europe right now. I think that's partly due to the startup ecosystem, which is very, very interesting in Berlin right now. And definitely...
Do you see it as a very enterprise one, by the way, or is it... I mean, obviously, you have a lot of customers that are startups, basically. I mean, it's a very strong business.
I think
for you guys.
we have a lot of early adopters, and a lot of these guys are startups or startups within large enterprises. And I think you definitely start to see more and more local adoption of cloud services also within larger enterprises. So there's definitely kind of there's a beginning of embrace of the cloud in Germany that is accelerating, and then you have this very interesting startup scene in Berlin that is definitely kind of gravitating a lot of interest both from Europe and outside of Europe.
Right. What do you think?
I mean, I think in the UK especially, there are tons, hundreds, thousands of enterprise software companies. The difference is they don't market themselves very well. They don't market themselves in a way which is attractive on the world stage. You know, they're not building a brand that consumers connect with. You know, and I think that's the big difference between American businesses and European businesses, enterprise businesses on the whole. But you know, you look at a bunch of great companies coming out of Europe, like Pipedrive in Estonia, who are building a very lightweight CRM competitive to Salesforce. Terrific software, great founders, you know, and this is another company who have, you know, they keep their technology in Eastern Europe, take advantage of the low-cost base, but their CEO and their BD people are all out on the West Coast, kind of making rain out there, you know. And I think for European businesses, it's such a great model. It just works so well.
Do you think
I must just add that I think a reason why you saw big opportunities in this space is that many of these existing players are based on legacy systems.
Yeah.
Really, really old systems. And I think that, I mean, just look at our space, the payment space. It's like all based on these standards from Visa, MasterCard since 40 years back. And then by coming in with a total new system, a total new way of thinking, that's how you can really disrupt.
Do you think, Nicholas, though, that, I mean, it's really interesting because I think that you guys are total converts to the idea of learning marketing and learning how to sell your company in the US is such an important part of your growth. Do you think that we can recreate, do you think that can be cultivated, or can you see that developing more in this part of the world? I mean, do you think we may have a point at which where startups come and don't feel like they need to take that step to the US in order to reach that next stage of growth?
Sure. I think you can build a company everywhere in the world. I think that there is tradition in Silicon Valley for building great companies, for building great technology startups.
And what I hope though is, in the next generation, it will be people like Mikkel and I going back to our homelands and investing in the businesses who are going to create that next great wave of companies.
Investing in businesses, huh?
Yeah.
Investors here on stage. All right. Thank you very much, you guys. I appreciate your time. Thanks for showing up. Thanks, everybody.